And this is MP3 number 1. This is Basic NLP Class 0. This is October 11th, 2018, and we're in the Lehigh Valley. Somebody gave me a chat message, so I'm going to go look at the chat message, see what it is. All right, so, somebody mentioned about having to turn their camera on. We don't have to see you for this class. So, if you don't have a camera, you don't turn it on. That's totally okay. So, I want to start off by saying the weather's pretty miserable tonight, and I know the traffic was wretched. We do have a number of seats here that aren't full, so if you were thinking about coming to the physical class, but you were worried about not finding a seat, it looks like we'll be able to accommodate a bunch more of you. So I want to start off by handing the microphone over to my better half, Sandy Long. She's the one that who floods your inbox, not me, so I'm not responsible for all the emails you're going to get. She's going to take the mic and tell you about all the mechanical stuff. That's what she handles.
Should I come and sit where you are?
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I don't really have anything prepared, but to let you know, the course will run 5 months approximately. It's 20 weeks, the basic NLP course, and the total cost is $600, so that it'll cost approximately $120 a month. You may pay up front the whole thing. You may pay weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, but we would like to see something once a month, a good portion of what you owe for the month by the end of the month. If you mail your payment in, that would have to be check, or you could pay using PayPal. If you come to class, you can pay by cash, check, credit card, or then later on PayPal. And some people by the end of the year would like an invoice or receipt showing what they paid for the class for income tax purposes or other purposes. So if you request that and tell me how you would like it, there's even one person asking for receipts, I think with every payment she makes. So just let me know by email if you want any of this. I can't think of anything else right now. Can you, Charlie? Anything I should say?
Is there anything you'll say about when we send out the MP3s or weekly exercises or anything like that?
Okay. Every class, now I don't know if he'll start it with tonight's class, but I think he will have an exercise. Then approximately the next day, we send out a report of the exercise, which you then have to email back, preferably within a few days. If there's a problem, it doesn't have to be within a few days. And we send out the video link, and this is all through my email, so it'll be longsandra42@gmail.com. So we send out the PDFs, the documents for class, the day before class or the day of class, and then a day or two later we send out the video link and the MP3s. And some people ask about his address to mail a check to, and he said that in that one document, the post office box is listed. If you have a problem finding it, just ask and I can email you the address. See if there was anything else. Of course, you can, I'm going to send out, since tonight's class is a free introductory class, and you don't have to actually commit yourself until next week. If you come to class or let us know that you definitely are taking the class, then you could start next week paying. And then I'll get an email out about put some things in writing for those people that I know are taking the class. So, I guess that's it.
So, just to give you a quick idea of the philosophy of this whole thing, this is the class I would have wanted to take when I first started out. And so that means we want to do everything as flexibly as possible. And so that's one reason we do the payments flexibly, even though it takes a little more work on our part. It gives you the flexibility, especially if you're on a budget, to pay in a way that fits your situation and to spread it out. Because a lot of classes like this, they'll require you to pay up front, and you got to find $600. We don't see any reason why you need to do that. As far as the Zoom procedure, every week you're going to get a Zoom invitation, and it's going to be a different Zoom invitation. We do that so the Zoom invitation only goes to the people who are officially taking the class at that moment. So we sent the Zoom invitation out to everybody this week, and those of us who indicate that you want to be in the class, you're the ones who will get the invitation next week. Because we don't want to flood your inbox with Zoom invitations if you're not interested. And Sandy sent out an email talking about, well, you need to click on the blue box that says Zoom, and then she clarified by saying you may not see the blue box that says Zoom if your browser looks at messages that are forwarded and doesn't display them, in which case you need to click on the message that says something like show original message or whatever your particular browser would do, and then it will display the email that Sandy forwarded, which has the Zoom link in it. So obviously a bunch of you got it right because you're online. Anybody who's not online and listening to this after the fact, now you know the correct procedure.
Oh, tell them too that the MP3s and the PDFs are sent out on as links so they can bring them up on other digital devices too.
Oh, Sandy wanted me to remind you that the MP3s, which are the audio recordings of this class, and the PDFs, which are the documents that we send out, they are all on the Google Cloud. They are links to the Google Cloud. That means you can download them to your phone or your computer or whatever it is that you're viewing or listening on. The videos are also links to the Google Cloud, but we've set them not to be downloaded because that's our intellectual property. We only want to make them available to somebody who's actually physically paid for that class. Now, once again, because this is the ideal class, the class I would have wanted to have, if you come back next week and you say, I'm committing to this class, you're only committing to come back the next week. In other words, if you quit halfway through for some reason, you only have to pay for the half of the class you went through. You don't have to pay the full $600. And, we hope all of you will stay with us. But we want to make sure that this is fair, that you don't have to pay for lessons that you didn't actually take. So, the next thing I wanted to do now, I'm going through this thing called Presentation Outline, so we sent that out so you know what I was going to talk about. We're really big on study guides, meaning there's some textbooks that you're going to be going through in excruciating detail, but we're going to actually study a study guide in this class, not the book itself. And the study guide will tell you what to look for in the book and what you're trying to understand from the book. And basically, we're trying to make studying the book so much easier. And we're teaching to the level of the study guide, meaning if you have mastered the material in the study guide, you will have gotten the level of information that we want you to get from this class. And to talk about the testing process, a lot of classes like this have tests that you have to study for and you have to memorize things from the books, and we don't do that. Because I don't believe memorization has any purpose whatsoever in the field of education. I think it's a totally useless artifact. What I'm interested in is not what's in the book, but teaching you where to find what you need in the books. Meaning the literature that's out there, all the different places you can find stuff. I want to make sure you know what's available and where to find it, because in the real world, when you're actually looking to find information to deal with an issue in a client session, that's what you're going to do. You're going to say, I need to find this information, and you need to know where to find it. And at that point, you follow the information that we give you, and you'll know where to find us. So I wanted to take a few minutes and go over my resume, curriculum vitae, just so that you know who I am, where I come from, and what I have experience in. And that's the one Sandy was referring to. It's the very top line of that. It has my address. It's Post Office Box 557, Reading, PA 19607. So all of you got a copy of this. If you open that up and look for that address, if you want to send us a payment via check, which a lot of people choose to do, just send it to that post office box and we'll get it. And below that is listed my email. If you're doing something business related, that should go through Sandy. If you're doing something that's related to the class exercises or anything else, that should be sent to my email. So current professional services, it says I'm board certified by the National Guild of Hypnotists, which is the largest hypnotist organization in the world. And they have a very large convention every year up in Marlborough, Massachusetts. I just came back from that a couple of weeks ago. And I've been on their faculty for years. And so I'm affiliated with them and I'm board certified by them. My official title is that I'm a consulting hypnotist, but because I'm board certified, I'm actually a BCH, which is a board certified hypnotist. But they call everybody who graduates from their training program a consulting hypnotist, means that they are available to consult not only with the client, but with other medical and mental health professionals. They're very big on the idea that we're here to solve problems not only of clients, but of other professionals. I think of what we do as emotional spot remover. You know, we can go in there, target a problem, and zap, it's gone. It says adults experiencing normal problems of living. That's our basic certification. So we can help you even if you don't have a diagnosis. And we don't care whether you have a diagnosis. If you do have a diagnosis, we may communicate with whoever gave it to you, whether a medical or mental health provider, as to how we can most easily help you with the situation. Normally, we do smoking, weight loss, and stress. And stress is a big bucket. It covers just about everything that's going on. I'm going to talk a lot about stress tonight because it causes huge problems. So that's basically what I do, and I do it in the Reading area. I've been there for 25 years now. And I've also been working in Dr. Alex Millspaugh's counseling practice up here in Bethlehem, which is where I'm sitting tonight. It's where we're having the class. I also offer weekly free classes in life skills, stress management, self-help, wellness techniques, and classic and modern metaphysics. And I do that every Wednesday night, and that's down in Temple. I've been doing that about 20 years. And then the next thing you see is the 120-hour certification training, which is what this first unit, Basic NLP, is part of. If you go through the whole thing, you'll get certified in Basic and Advanced NLP. You'll get a certificate in Stress Management Consulting. You'll get a certificate as a Mindfulness Meditation Trainer. The Advanced NLP also covers Advanced Ericksonian Hypnotherapy. And I see a correction in this that needs to be made. It says Monday nights, Why Missing PA. Actually, it's Thursday nights in Bethlehem, so I'm going to remind myself I need to change that. That's one of the hazards of cut and paste. So I am an award-winning person. It always feels good to say that. You see down there important milestones with approximate dates. I got something called the NGH Hallmark Award. So NGH means National Guild of Hypnotists. That was for excellence in teaching. I got something from them called the Order of Braid Award for a lifetime of achievement, dedication, and service. I guess that means I'm nearer the end than the beginning of my life. When you start getting lifetime achievement awards, it's like I must be older than I used to be. A few years before that, I got Trainer of the Year Award for this very program that you're in. And also that same year, I had finished a doctoral program, and my thesis project which was on Ericksonian hypnotherapy, and which we will go through as part of this training process, was accepted into a peer-reviewed research database. This is actually in the United Kingdom. Over there, they're very organized in how they do hypnotherapy. People have to meet a very rigorous standard, and then they can actually offer hypnotherapy through the national healthcare system. And so someone saw my thesis and they said, this is really good. We think, they came from the UK and they said, we think that we'd like to have that in our database. So that was kind of interesting. Got to submit it to them and go through the peer review process with a bunch of PhDs. So it was a good feeling to know that it got accepted into that database. So the year before is when I actually completed that program in clinical hypnotherapy. And a lot of what you're going to learn in this class comes from that clinical hypnotherapy program. It was very complete. It was an excellent program. I liked it very much. Also, I started an online support forum for NLP practitioners and hypnotists, which now numbers about 1,000 members, has internationally known professionals in it. And like many other online support forums, all of its members have migrated to Facebook. So at the moment, I have an online support forum with 1,000 members, which hasn't had activity in a number of months. So I'm not quite sure whether I'm going to migrate them to something on Facebook or what we're going to do with that. But for many years, that was a place where people could come and ask their questions, and other people could chime in and give them answers. There was a program that I graduated from called 5-Path, 5-Phase Abreactive Therapy for Deep Emotional Release and Integration. And I helped new hypnotherapists who just finished training in this program to mentor them in how to do this, how to solve their problems, and I got an award for that. Before that, I became a certified trainer for NFNLP. That's actually one of the organizations that's going to give you a certificate if you go through this program, National Federation of NLP. And then before that, I joined the adjunct faculty of National Guild of Hypnotists teaching continuing education classes. So ever since 2003, I've been training for the National Guild. In 1996 was when I was certified by the National Guild. I already knew how to do hypnosis. I actually went through a training program from Dick Sutphin many years ago, and I actually started teaching stress management back in 1983. But when I actually opened my private practice was actually when I got trained and certified by the National Guild. That was in 1996. So just to go through the other part of this, which is my professional credentials, I'm doing this so that you know I'm really cool. No. Actually, I'm doing this so that you understand the kinds of places you can go. If you poke your nose into the hypnotherapy world and you join the National Guild, which I hope you will, and these are all the things that you can get from them and organizations like them. So, number one, it says I'm board certified in hypnotherapy for general and medically referred clients by the National Guild of Hypnotists. In other words, they say anybody can walk through your door. They don't have to have a diagnosis, don't have to have a medical problem. That's a general client. If somebody is referred to you, or if they walk in with a medical or mental health problem, and so you have them evaluated by the appropriate person in that field, that becomes a medically referred client. And what you will gain in this class will get you cross-certified with the Guild, meaning you're qualified to deal with medically referred clients doing the skills that we will be teaching in this class. So it says eating habits, smoking, stress, and many, many other things. Number two, certified in Ericksonian hypnotherapy for more effective results with resistant problems by the American Board of Hypnotherapy. That's a West Coast organization. And what actually happens is that when you work with really difficult problems, people have all kinds of resistances that'll come up. You'll find that they compartmentalize parts of their personality, and the different parts of the personality will take over usually at inappropriate times and do flashbacks if they have PTSD, or put them in a mood if they have an affect disorder, or mess them up if they have a personality disorder. And so all of these different things, we're going to teach you how to deal with all of that. Next one, certified in mind-body therapy regression methods for neutralizing trauma associated with chronic illness, thereby reducing suffering and psychosomatic components. So a lot of what we do is mind-body. You're going to hear something about mind-body tonight, and we're going to get into it extensively as we go through this process. And everything that goes on is mind-body, because everything is mind, everything is body. There's a connection, and the connection is in the brain, and in the advanced class we actually teach you the physiology of that connection. But anything that's going on in a person's body can be influenced by their mind, and anything that goes on in their body will be influencing their mind. And in any case, we'll teach you how to deal with it. And so, chronic illness, suffering, psychosomatic components. We're going to teach you about that. Next one, complementary medical hypnotism, CPT 90880. CPT means current procedure terminology. That's a book that sits on your doctor's desk, where all of the different things that he can diagnose you with or write a prescription for, they're all categorized there. And so CPT 90880 is actually medical hypnotism, and it's complementary, meaning it complements everything else that he does. So he can actually write you, or she can write you a prescription for medical hypnotism. And if you want to get billed by an insurance company for medical hypnotism, that would be the proper procedure. Now it says, working under referral from the client's medical team to assist in recovery from medical conditions, to pre- and post-surgical conditioning, reduce fear of medical procedures, conditioning for pain control, potentiating medication, reducing side effects, and more rapid recovery. And I took that particular training from NGH. Then it says, certified as an instructor in basic and advanced neurolinguistic programming, NLP, techniques useful in addiction, stress reduction, confidence, goal achievement by National Federation of Neurolinguistic Psychology, that's NFNLP. And I trained with the president, who's William Horton. He's a certified alcohol and drug counselor. He's also a psychologist who specialized in addictions. Number 6, certified in 5-path, that's age regression hypnosis for releasing old feelings contributing to unwanted behavior, thinking, and stress. In other words, if someone has an unwanted behavior, if they have feelings that they don't like, or if they're stressed out of their minds, then there's an old emotional charge in the past that is still operating. And we'll teach you how to get in there, find out what it is, and neutralize it. Number 7, certified in hypnotapping, a variant of emotional freedom technique. That's EFT, and that's the tapping technique, and we're going to get into that extensively, but not tonight. It's frequently effective in quickly reducing compulsive urges, emotional stress, and physical pain, sometimes within minutes. And the two people that I took this from were Tony DeMarco and John Gatto from the Academy of Professional Hypnosis, which is in New Jersey. The next thing is certified in reducing suffering in medically referred clients with illness or injury by nurse anesthetist Ron Esslinger. He's a very interesting fellow. He spent his career as an anesthetist on Navy vessels, and so he worked in very cramped quarters, helping people, doctors perform operations. He got very, very good at pain control, and hypnosis can be as effective as morphine. We're going to teach you how to do that too. Certified as a stress management consultant. Jillian Lavelle, past president of the International Association of Counselors and Therapists. A lot of what you're going to do is simply stress management consulting. Someone comes in the door, they're stressed out of their mind, they don't know what to do, and very quickly, within an hour, certainly within 2 hours, you can pull the roots of that stress out and leave them feeling enormously better. Then 1,350 hours graduate level studies in clinical hypnotherapy. That was actually the doctorate in clinical hypnotherapy. And the last thing is lifelong commitment to training in daily personal practice in mindfulness meditation and many other forms of meditation and motivational systems. I'm going to put the mic down for a minute and I'll be right back. I think it got too cool in here.
Oh.
So I'm going to crank up the air conditioning a notch. right, so what I'm going to do tonight is use a scattershot approach. I'm going to just kind of blast through the whole course and just pluck out things that I found of interest when I was figuring out what I was going to say in the introduction this time around. The next thing says, now I'm looking at the presentation outline, it says direct versus Ericksonian hypnosis. And what is that all about? Old style hypnosis, where they sit you down and they say your legs are relaxing, your feet are relaxing, your arms are relaxing, you are now your ideal weight and body shape, $100 please. That's the old direct suggestion model, and a lot of people made their living for a lot of years doing it that way. However, the elegance happened in 1958 when Milton Erickson had his techniques enter the professional curriculum, and he did what has now become as Ericksonian hypnosis, and it's a very sophisticated model, and it can do a whole lot of things that you can't do with direct suggestion hypnosis. Direct suggestion is mostly scripts. And for example, you take the National Guild course and they'll give you a whole set of scripts, smoking, weight loss, stress, and other things. And then you can actually hang out your shingle at that point and do smoking, weight loss, and stress using scripts. However, you'll get a lot better results if you learn the more sophisticated stuff. And the way the National Guild handles it is they then have extra classes which you can take on top of the original class that'll teach you more advanced topics, and you can also go to their continuing education conventions. And there they have hundreds of lectures on hundreds of subjects. All right, it says definition of trance, a common everyday experience. Something that's been going on for years in the professional hypnosis field is people having disagreements about trance, what causes it, who's susceptible to it, how good you are at it. Some people contend that it doesn't exist, or it doesn't exist as a particular state. It can't be identified. Other people say, of course it can be. They've been having these arguments for years. And of course, whenever somebody's disagreeing about the meaning of a word, it means they're using the word in different ways. So, for you to understand what I have to say, you have to be in trance. Anytime you're having a conversation with another person, you're in trance. Anytime you're upset, you're in trance. Anytime you're in love with something or someone, you're in trance. Anytime you're focused on something, you're in trance. So, obviously, the definition of trance I'm using is something other than being up on stage in a hypnosis show or being in a hypnotist's office with your eyes closed and your body totally still. The definition of trance I'm using is a state of focused attention. And that covers pretty much everything. In other words, people are in trance all the time. People come into my office and say, "You'll never put me in trance." I'm saying, yeah, right. That idea, they'll never put me in trance, that's a trance. And it has its own trance logic. And when you find out what the characteristics of trance are, you'll find out that literally we are in trance all day long, and that's what causes most of our problems and most of our solutions. So trance is a common everyday experience. So I mentioned such as in love, which is one state of focused attention, and then having an argument, which sometimes happens after people are in love. So, but that's a state of focused attention. Anytime you're focused in on something to the exclusion, when you're not taking all of the information available into your awareness, you're in a state of focused attention. In other words, you're ignoring something. And as long as you're ignoring something, you're focused. If you're focused, you're in trance. And for example, people have gotten in trouble recently for texting while driving. Texting requires such an extreme state of focused attention that it takes so much attention away from the act of driving that you can't do the two at the same time safely. So that's kind of an extreme example of the other way. Okay, I'm hearing a little bit of noise coming out the speakers. So could you make sure that your mic is muted? Because otherwise, whenever your computer makes a sound, it temporarily blocks my sound to everybody else. All right, so the next thing says conversational hypnosis. And what is that? Well, when you're talking to somebody and they're listening and hearing you, both of you are in trance, So both of you are doing what's called conversational hypnosis. Now, there's another more precise meaning of that. And therapeutically, you can have a conversation with someone, you can put them in trance, do trance work with them and bring them back, and they won't even know you did that. So I always do that when I take somebody's history. I conduct them into various interesting states of mind while I'm taking history. We can often start doing the therapeutic work while we're discussing what's on their intake form. So you're going to learn how to do that. It's a fascinating art, and it means you don't have to do formal, okay, let's sit down and do trance work in order to do hypnotherapy. You can just have a conversation with someone, and they'll be better as a result. Degree of dissociation is on a continuum. One way of looking at hypnosis is it's how focused are you. When you're in deep, deep therapeutic trance, you're much more dissociated than when you're sitting in the park doing mindfulness meditation. If you're sitting in the park doing mindfulness meditation, that is a state of trance. And you're probably in a state of choiceless awareness where you're focusing in on more or less everything and enjoying that. And so that dissociation is much different than the dissociation when you're in deep trance. When that person is texting and driving and they pay attention to texting and cause a problem, they got too dissociated. Now, there's a whole class of mental health problems that are called dissociative issues. And so what we say is dissociation occurs on a continuum. For example, if I bring something in and then I start talking to Sandy and forget where I put what I brought in, I just dissociated from the state of mind I was in when I put that thing down. However, that doesn't mean I have dissociative identity disorder. It just means I don't remember where I put that thing when I brought it in. So there's non-pathological dissociation, and then there's pathological dissociation. For example, when you're in the office, you probably want to be dissociated from the sexual part of yourself. It's usually not useful to do both at the same time. So there are dissociations that are actually helpful. If you like to go line dancing on Friday nights, and you work as an accountant, you probably don't want to associate to that line dancing part while you're sitting at your computer in the accountant's office. And when you're out line dancing, you don't want to be thinking about accounting. So dissociation is very appropriate and very useful. It's only when it gets out of balance that it causes a problem. One session versus brief therapy versus longer term. We're going to teach you enough that you could actually fix somebody's problem in one session, and I've often done that many times. Somebody comes, I see them once, I never see them again, and then 6 months later, I'll get a referral from them, and the person will come in and say, boy, you really helped such and such, and they told me I should come to you. So that's one session therapy. For certain kinds of problems, that's not ideal. If you have someone who's been serially abused, who has extreme codependence, who has a physical problem like physical pain, one session is not going to be appropriate. If you have somebody who wants to do weight loss, you're going to see them at least once a month over several months. So, however, that doesn't mean you're going to see them for years or even months. It all depends on what their problem is. So brief therapy depends on which profession you're talking about. When CBT, that's cognitive behavioral therapy, put together a program for certain kinds of problems and said we can get this problem solved in 16 weeks. That to them was a brief therapy compared to the alternatives. And yet for a lot of problems that people come to me for, I'm like, I don't have to see them 16 times. I might have to see them twice, 3 times, but not 16 times. And then you have the clients I was talking about with the more severe medical or mental health issues where there's so many things on their plate they don't have the ability to absorb as much change in any given session. And so that kind of person is going to be longer term. I tend to see people once a month, but some people you have to see more often. You might have to see a person every 2 weeks if they're in crisis, every 1 week. But if you're already working in the mental health field, and I know a number of you are, you already have a format, a way of doing things, and so you're going to be fitting what we're going to teach you here into what you're already doing. So whatever format you're already doing, you're just going to take our toolbox and add it to the tools you already have. Getting your buttons pushed. Old emotional charges. anytime you get your button pushed, it means you had a trigger and somebody triggered it. And you know, some people, we call them sensitive or chip on their shoulder, they have push buttons all over them. And somebody comes up to them and boom, they push that button and the person's flying off the handle, or they're afraid, or they're turning into a wallflower, they're curling up and dying, their pain, physical pain got triggered. So these are old emotional charges that got locked into the subconscious mind because of old traumatic experiences. And so now we're getting into the realm of post-traumatic stress. And this is something that hypnosis can be extremely helpful with. It can actually be much more helpful than conventional psychotherapy if the trauma is buried deeply. Because anything that's buried deeply, conscious psychotherapy tends not to affect as effectively as something that goes right into the subconscious. So if you deal with a lot of people that have, for example, post-traumatic stress, the things you learn in this class will add to what you already know and make you even more effective. EFT and other energy psychology, we're big fans of EFT. That's the tapping protocol. I know of at least 60 energy psychology techniques, and EFT is only one of them. We like it because it's easy to teach to the client, and you can help the client take it home with them, and then tell them, whenever you get stressed, do this, and come back in a month and let's see how you're doing. What I do is I actually record their tapping in the office, and I guide them through it, and then I send that to them. They seem to find that easier than trying to figure out how to do it on their own. But there's many approaches. There are hundreds and hundreds of tapping sequences on YouTube. There's one guy, Brad Yates, who's an expert in the field. He has 700 videos all by himself on YouTube for various subjects. So if you want to find out about EFT, that's a great place to go. All right, so this next paragraph, I actually covered everything in here, which was dissociation on a continuum. But I also wanted to mention the least little tension that you have is going to mess up your ability to associate. So you just met somebody and 30 seconds later you forgot his or her name. I'm famous for doing that. What that means is I was so focused in on something else that even though they said their name, I didn't file it in the appropriate place. Sometimes you know somebody's name, but in the heat of a conversation you can't remember it. That's a temporary dissociation, and as soon as you relax, that name will come flying back into your mind. Where did I put that thing? Sometimes people lose really valuable things, and they'll come to a hypnotist, and we can help them find that really valuable thing. All right. Then when it gets pathological, like a personality disorder is someone who's so dissociated from their real, genuine self that they are ending up identified with this dissociated image of themselves and having to get you to buy into it. So that would be someone who's paranoid or someone who's narcissistic or some of the other flavors. They are not only totally dissociated from who they are, but they have to make you dissociated from who they are too. It's important to them that you buy into their baloney. So next one says stress, 20 minutes tissue damage, long-term tube up your nose. And what that's... So I need to explain that. So when you're stressed, your body goes into emergency mode. And many of us, our button gets pushed or our stress gets triggered multiple times per day. And hopefully we recover from it in a few minutes. But stress is the emergency mechanism. It keeps us safe. And we all have it all the way down to lizards. And so it's associated with a part of the brain called the lizard brain. And it's designed to be over in 20 minutes or less. And that's from a book called The Psychobiology of Mind-Body Healing, which we're going to be looking at in the advanced class. And if it takes more than 20 minutes, you start getting tissue damage. And so if you're in stress all day long for months or years, you're going to end up long-term with a tube up your nose. What I mean by that is you're going to wind up with a chronic illness in the doctor's office, and you're going to, at the end of your life, be in a nursing home with taking way too many medications. So if you can take the stress out of somebody, you can take the chronic illness out of them also. And to me, that's a very exciting consequence of the information in this class. You can really help people get better. Study the leading edge practitioners, and here I'm listing some of them. Candace Pert, a famous scientist from the NIH, Bruce Lipton, the cellular biologist, Herbert Benson, he was the cardiologist from Harvard, John Sarno, who did pioneering work in the physiology of pain, Ernest Rossi, who was Milton Erickson's best friend, edited his volumes, and then went on to do groundbreaking work of his own. And these and many others will agree there is a stress component in every illness, including the big bad ones, like cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. We'll show you the science around that, and we'll show you how to shift the body and mind so that the body and mind can begin to roll back. And yes, you can roll back cancer, and yes, you can roll back heart disease. Yes, you can roll back diabetes. Now, all of these take work. The person has to be willing to do the work. You have to catch it before the body is too messed up. But yes, it can be done. We're going to give you examples of that, tell you about case histories, all of that good stuff. And top of the next page, examples of patients whose cancer went into remission when deep emotional work was done. One of the training films I saw showed a woman who was in last stage breast cancer, and I saw the entire process by which that breast cancer was rolled back into remission. It took 40 minutes of emotional work, and after that she went totally into remission. And that was a Gary Craig training tape. Robert Dilts was an NLP practitioner. He took his mom in last stage breast cancer, and with 4 days of intensive work, rolled it all the way back. She died 13 years later of some other purpose. CPT 90880, I already mentioned that. NFNLP certs and our certs. You're going to get two different sources of certificates. You're going to get some from me that say you're stress management consultant, you've gone through advanced hypnotherapy training, et cetera, et cetera. And you're going to get certifications from the National Federation of NLP. The basic NLP comes from them. The advanced NLP comes from them. If you complete the entire year-long process, then I will certify you as a consulting hypnotist, and you may then apply to the National Guild, and they will cross-certify you. They will accept my certification as being equal to theirs. And so that's a very prestigious certification from them. All right, many of our problems began before age 6. Limiting beliefs, emotional issues, downloaded from family of origin and other authority figures. And so that's really true. If someone has a problem, it most likely began before age 6 because you're an emotional sponge. You believe everything your parents say you have to survive. And if there's a problem, it's your fault because they're perfect. This is the way the young child has to think in order to survive. And so if there are emotional issues in the family, as there are in many families, emotional, physical, sexual abuse, that sort of thing, then that can really leave a trail of broken bodies behind. So the person comes into your office, they're codependent, they don't know how to deal with it, and so we're going to show you how to just jump right into that, go right to the origin, find that memory back in early childhood. At that point, the memory will come up. Usually it's sadness, sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's anger, but it always seems to end up in sadness, and it's that inner child not feeling loved. And it takes you about 30 seconds to get through that emotion. It's not a long process at all. And doesn't have to be a dramatic process. Sometimes, if a hypnotist jumps right back into an old feeling and is too enthusiastic about it, abreactions can be pretty strong. But the way we teach you to do it is a very gentle way. And the emotion comes up, and in 30 seconds it's out and gone, and it will never, ever bother that person again. And in that moment, that problem that they've had for years just completely disappears. It's pretty amazing. So, it says there are walled-off emotional charges, literally parts of ourselves, that think at age 4 or 6 or whatever. When people say, when you get upset, you act like a little kid, they're right. Because what happens is, at age 3, you decided this experience was so scary you couldn't process it at the time. So you just shoved it down and built a concrete wall around it. Except every time somebody does something like that in your life, some of that emotional charge comes leaking out, and you get upset and you can't handle it. And so you find yourself with an affect disorder or something else, or you find yourself with a psychosomatic illness, or your button keeps getting pushed. And when you do that, you act like a little kid, and that's why you actually think. The thinking process is cut off when that personality part splits off. All right, next thing. This is about the evolution of chronic illness. We all break at our own genetic weak point. So we all get different diseases. But the common denominator is stress. In other words, everybody in this room, if we all get stressed, we're going to feel it at a different part of our body in a different way. Somebody might get a back spasm, somebody might get tight shoulders, somebody else might get stomach distress, somebody else's blood sugar will go off the charts, somebody else will start to build up plaque in their blood vessels. We all handle this differently. But the common denominator is stress. So you turn up at your doctor's office, and the doctor just treats the illness they see and the symptoms you present. And they typically don't have the time or the training to go back and figure out what caused this, what stress put this in motion. So they'll treat you for the diabetes, but they won't get rid of what caused it. And so you end up taking diabetic drugs for life. Whereas if you get rid of the emotional roots, the body comes back into balance and the diabetes can be gone. So that's really good news. You can really complement what physicians do. If you get a crack at somebody's stress, you can really put them in a much better place. Now, you'll learn one session, stop smoking and weight loss. Now, one session, stop smoking. I don't even schedule follow-ups for smoking anymore because everybody kept calling up and canceling them and said, I quit smoking. I don't have to come back. So now I put them on their honor. If you do smoke, you have to call me up and come in and we'll fix it, but nobody calls. Weight loss, obviously that takes place over time. I usually have them come back every month until they're satisfied with what's happening. And oftentimes the first month or so they'll run into some speed bumps or something, so it's good that they did come back. But you'll be able to do this in one session. You don't have to do 12 sessions to get somebody started in weight loss. You can do it in one session. Now, you can also condition a client to follow his doctor's orders. I've spent a lifetime hanging around the nursing profession because for many years I was a software engineer and helped do software for home care nursing. Also did hospital software and a lot of other stuff that was related. And one of the biggest problems that I learned from all of that is that getting the patient to do what the doctor wants them to do is really hard. Doctor says lose weight. Patient goes out and eats what they want to eat. Doctor says stop smoking. It goes in one ear and out the other. So the doctor says you really need to not have that much salt in your diet, or you really need to drink more water, or you really need to get a certain amount of exercise, and the person just doesn't do it. With hypnosis, you can do that. So you can help increase the compliance, and if you do that, you may save that person's life. So this is very, very complementary to what the other professions do. Pre- and post-surgery. That's really important. When someone is going in for surgery, they're often scared to death, and you can condition them when they come in to not only take away their fear, but also to condition them that post-surgery they'll feel little or no pain, that they'll recover much faster, that their length of stay in the hospital can be shorter, and this is all proven with scientific studies. This is very, very reproducible. You tell them you'll need less pain meds, and they need less pain meds. The mind is very amenable to this. And I didn't mention this here, but there's a topic called hypnobirthing, which is how to help a woman facilitate her pregnancy. And I've helped facilitate 3 pregnancies that went to term this year, and they all ended up in bouncing babies. And I didn't go anywhere near the process, but I did condition these women, number 1, to take away their fears, number 2, to take away the horror stories that everybody wanted to load them up with, and 3, to condition them that this is a natural process, that the birthing can be natural, it doesn't have to be painful, your body has endorphins, all the stuff that's actually true that nobody knows, that if you do that will give you a pain-free or almost pain-free delivery without medication, etc., and so forth and so on. All right, the next thing, pain control. There's a ton of things you can do for pain control with hypnosis. And also energy psychology. The tapping is really good for pain control. We're going to cover that as well. Bibliotherapy. That's when you read a book and you get better, or you read a book and your pain goes away. That's actually possible. And there's a number of different types of pain, and I'm not going to show you all those books tonight, but as we go through the course, I'll show you those different books that you can use for bibliotherapy. Read this book and your pain may disappear. Journaling techniques. That's writing in a journal. If you write for 30 days in a journal in a specific way, your pain just might go away. And I didn't make this stuff up. These are all protocols that I learned from other people. They're just amazingly, incredibly effective. And then hypnosis itself, well, can be as effective as morphine. So if you have somebody hooked on opioids, you can help them reduce their dependence, and you can show them how to get rid of their pain in another way. Regression, abreaction. Regression, you've heard of hypnotic regression, is simply when you go remember something from the past. And so when you remember it, you regress to it. Now you can simply remember it, or you can relive it. When you have a PTSD flashback, you're reliving it. When your button gets pushed and you're 3 years old again, having a temper tantrum, you're reliving it. And so we teach you how to get back to that regression state where you're reliving it in a way that releases the problem. And when you release it, it's called an abreaction. In other words, you're letting go of that old feeling. And like I said before, we're going to teach you how to do it gently. There's a concept called chasing the pain. When you start working with someone for pain control, you'll get rid of the pain in the left side of their head, and then they'll say, oh, now there's pain, but it's in the right side of my head. It's a little bit less, but now I feel it over here. And then you get rid of that, and they say, well, now my shoulder feels a little bit tense. And it's called chasing the pain. And what it actually means is all the pains were there, but the only one you could feel was the big throbbing in the left side of your head. And so you get rid of that, and all of a sudden the others are visible. So we're going to teach you how to chase the pain. When the pain starts moving around, you know you're really nailing it. Stress management consulting. There actually are stress management consulting courses out there, and they have really good textbooks and really good curriculums. And so we're going to teach you all of that stuff that you would learn in a standard stress management consulting course, which is why at the end of this 20 weeks, you will get a certificate as a stress management consultant. And you could fill up an entire practice, even if you never said, I'm doing hypnosis, even if you ever never worked with medical issues. If all you did was work with stress, you could fill your practice with people who are stressed and helping them get rid of their stress. So that is something that a lot of people do, and they do it for a living. And there are some, people have screwy ideas about what hypnosis is, and sometimes they're afraid of it. But no one's afraid of stress management. So if you have a client who's stressed, and they want to make sure you don't make them cluck like a chicken, I've never actually seen anybody do that. I've heard people have asked me about that. I've never actually seen it, not even in any stage show have I seen them do that. But I've never had a person yet say, no, it's not okay if you reduce my stress. We use a university model in this class of literature-based textbooks and supervised exercises. A lot of hypnosis trainings are, 10-hour wonders. They bring in for a weekend and shoot you out the door at the end of the weekend and say, you're a certified hypnotist. Well, that doesn't mean anything. I'm a bug on evidence-based. I want there to be a reference in the literature. I want this to have been studied. I want to be able to show you where these studies are. So if some physician says, well, what do you mean hypnosis is as effective as morphine? Show me the literature reference. You can do that. If somebody says, what do you mean you can relieve post-traumatic stress? Or even if a non-professional, the client wants to know, you can say, well, there's many studies that point to this. And in most cases, neither the medical professional nor the client actually want to go look up the studies. They just want to know that there is a study, and since everything here is evidence-based, that is, there's something in the scientific literature, that means that you can say, everything I do is evidence-based. I actually did a presentation at the National Guild of Hypnotists this summer, where I showed everyone what evidence-based meant and pointed them into the literature. We also do exercises, and they're supervised. For example, at the end of this class, I want to give you an exercise. If you complete it, all these exercises, except for 2 in the advanced class, will not take you a long time. And so the one tonight is simply going to be spend 15 minutes hanging out with some people and notice what trances they're in, which is a lot of fun. Because these may be family members, people at your workplace, clients, or other people you know. Just notice the trances that are going on. But what will happen is you will have learned to associate people's behaviors and their speech with the trance that they're in. So that's an interesting thing to know. Like I said, everything we do is evidence-based. We assume you know nothing, and we teach you starting from scratch. So you don't have to know anything about hypnosis, nothing about energy psychology, nothing about stress management. We're starting at ground zero here. And because everybody is at a different level, and I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page by the time they're done. Now, everybody secretly takes this class to feel better and to relieve their stress. So if you feel like you would like to take this class to feel better and to relieve your stress, don't feel guilty or weird. Everybody else in the class is here for the same reason. It will teach you how to do it. When I took these trainings, I took them so that I could feel better and relieve my stress. Now, there's 3 chunks of this class. There's the basic chunk, 20 weeks, mindfulness trainer, 8 weeks, and advanced hypnotist, 20 weeks. And so at the end of the first 20 weeks, which is what you're taking now, we consider you qualified to hang out a shingle as an NLP practitioner and to call yourself a stress management consultant. So you don't have to get through the whole program to make your living as a professional. I know most of you are already making your living as a professional. But you'll be able at the end of this 20 weeks to tell someone, yes, I am an NLP practitioner, and yes, I qualified as a stress management consultant. Now, if you're already involved in the practice of psychotherapy, and I know many of you are, this will really enhance your psychotherapy skills. Neurolinguistic programming tears everything down into the individual words and the effect of the individual words on the personality, on the emotions, and on the behavior. And it just makes you more aware. We actually deconstruct experience and then put the pieces back together again in a way that works better. That's how we fix the client. But in order to do that, you have to understand how to do that, and so this will get you better at everything. For example, let's say you're already trained in CBT. This will take you to the next level of CBT, and you'll understand the CBT research better, and you'll be better with clients in the office, etc. When you go through the 8 weeks in the middle of this, there's 20 weeks of basic, then 8 weeks mindfulness. I put that in the middle because in my mind, if you don't know how to do meditation, you can't be a good consulting hypnotist, so I won't graduate anybody as a consulting hypnotist who has not been through a mindfulness training. It's a wonderful skill to have, and it just leaves you feeling wonderfully. It lets you stand behind the waterfall of life, and we all have stresses too, so anything that helps us deal with stress better is a wonderful thing. So, mindfulness is a hot thing right now. There's lots of books, thousands of studies, lots and lots of people getting their PhDs in it right now, lots of research being done. And so the people who are already out there as practitioners, as medical people, as mental health people, they want to get trained in mindfulness. Well, by the time you're through with that 8 weeks, you will have gone through an 8-week training, and at the same time, you will have learned how to conduct that 8-week training. At the end of that, you will be qualified to teach mindfulness to individuals, to groups, and to medical and mental health professionals. Now, I also want to mention we're going to go into much more depth than most mindfulness courses. For example, one client took a course from a world-famous mindfulness trainer, and she was a little skeptical. How is Charlie going to be more than this guy who's written these books and everybody likes him? And then at the end, she said, she learned a lot from me that he didn't teach. And it's because of my background. It's because I'm a hypnotist. It's because I know that mindfulness is trance. It's because I know that the thousands of studies in the hypnosis world also apply to the mindfulness world, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the textbooks we use during that mindfulness training is actually going to compare mindfulness and hypnosis, show you that they're the same, and show you how to be a better mindfulness trainer because you know about the hypnosis part of it. Flexible payment model, I've already mentioned that.
You know what, I don't know if you want to say that once they take the course, they can audit it free. And then
Sandy mentioned something that I forgot to mention, and that is once you complete this course, you become an alumni, and once you become an alumni, you are free to audit this class in the future, anytime, any place, anywhere. It can be 5 years from now, and you can decide I want to audit the next basic training because I want to refresh my mind. You can do that at no charge. And we like it when you do that because you have insights to contribute, and we know we teach you so much that you can't get it all the first time around anyway. NLP is typically taught on what they call the overload principle. And the overload principle means we're actually teaching you at the subconscious level. So your conscious mind may feel overloaded much of the time, like you're just getting too darn much to absorb in this 2.5 hours. But you're getting it at the important stuff at the subconscious level, and what you walk out of here will be enough. So I also want to mention, if you ever feel overloaded at any point during this course, that's okay. Don't let it get to you. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean you should quit. It just means you're doing it right. In fact, one of the principles, another principle that we mentioned, is if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. Remember, this is a class I always wanted to take. And I think education should be about fun, because when you have fun, you learn it effortlessly. So this is not about rote learning. This is not about testing. There is no pressure. We want you to be having fun. And if you find yourself not having fun, we want you to back up, take a look, and say, how am I stressing myself? The weekly exercise I've already mentioned, and what it's going to be this week, observing the trances of people around you. One of the fascinating topics in hypnosis that if you've only had conventional psychotherapy training, you probably don't know about this, is called ideomotor. Ideomotor, idea and motor, so it's an idea that moves a part of the body. It affects a motor nerve. So if I hold my hand out here and I've designated this finger as yes and this finger as no, and I say to myself, is my name Charlie, and I put myself in trance, sooner or later that yes finger is going to start wiggling, and it's going to start popping up. And if I say, is my name Sandy, then my no finger is going to pop up. Well, that's kind of trivial. That's a party game thing. But you can actually go in to the subconscious mind of somebody with a very bad chronic illness that is not responding to conventional medical care. And there are techniques you can use to dialogue with the subconscious mind and find out what's going on. It will tell you things the conscious mind does not know and give you the keys to the kingdom. And we have some books by really good people who have devoted their lives to it, and they're excellent at it. And if you want to delve into it, we'll show you exactly where to go. And this is where you get the benefit that I went through that doctoral program, because this is one of the classes I took in the doctoral program, the advanced ideomotor stuff, and I'll be recommending the book that I went to for that class. All right, and that's actually what I said in the next paragraph. Now, conscious, subconscious, and unconscious, what's that all about? It's actually time for me to change the MP3, so I'm going to shut off and say this is MP3 number 2. This is Basic NLP Class 0. This is October 11th, 2018, and we're in the Lehigh Valley. And we're going over the presentation outline. So, everybody throws these words around, conscious, subconscious, unconscious, and sometimes they designate them differently. If you're classically trained Freudian, you're going to use these words differently than how I would use them. So just as a working definition, conscious is what you're conscious with, so you're paying attention to me with your conscious mind. The subconscious is what you're dimly aware of. Like if you start to feel nervous about something, your conscious mind is dimly aware that you're beginning to feel nervous about something, but you can't really put it into words yet. You can't deconstruct it. So that would be the subconscious. That's where most of the emotional issues wind up. And then the unconscious mind, the way I use it, is that's the part of your mind that you never do become conscious of. That's the part that runs the body. So I can tune my conscious into my subconscious and cause me to have dream images and to get insights. And so that's what you do in hypnosis. You take the person and you point them into their subconscious. But the unconscious mind is the part that regulates the breathing, the heartbeat, the blood pressure, all that kind of thing. And so we're going to be using those words many, many times. But now you know what I'm talking about when I use those 3 words. In a few minutes, I'm going to start showing you the books for tonight, or actually the books for this course. And we used to go to the publishers and get boxes of books and then distribute them and all of that. And these days, with Amazon being a click away and all the used bookstores of the world a click away, it's easier for us to just say, get your own books. You know, you're not going to get a lower price than Amazon unless you go to a used bookstore. The main thing is if you go to a used bookstore, make sure you get the right edition. And for each of these books, we're going to show you what edition to get, because if you get the old editions, yeah, they're way cheap and they're missing half the stuff we're going to be talking about. Lifting people out of a depressed mood quickly. There's a lot of things that with conventional psychotherapy can be difficult to do. Typically, lifting someone out of a depressed mood using NLP takes about 10 minutes. And doesn't mean they're out of their depression forever, because if they have a lot of momentum behind being depressed, as soon as they get triggered, they're going to go flying back to that old friendly road. But we're going to show you how to take somebody out of any mood. It's actually called changing their state. And most people that come in for psychotherapy, especially if they have a medical condition, they're going to be depressed one way or another. And as long as they're depressed, they feel like nothing is going to work for them. And so therefore, what you do isn't going to work for them. And so unless you get them out of that depressed mood, what you do will be less effective. So we're going to teach you how to do that very quickly so that you can get more useful work done with them. Now, when you pull the stress out of somebody, their body can heal. In other words, the body always wants to go back to homeostasis, which is a state of perfect balance. And given a no-stress condition, it will do that. The body is actually intended to live in joy, and that's why we talk about enjoying life. It literally means enjoy. And yet for many of us, life is not in joy. We have lost the sweetness of life. We're spending more time in stress than we are enjoying ourselves, and that's when the chronic illness pops up. And one of them, one chronic illness that affects a lot of people is heart disease. And they get these plaques, they get their arteries start to block up, they may end up needing a stent. In extreme cases, they may end up needing a bypass. Or not. Here's a guy called Dean Ornish, reversing heart disease. And if you get on Great Courses, I'm sure you've all heard of Great Courses at this point. It's the teaching company. And they have really nice survey courses on hundreds of subjects. I have invested a lot of my money in them. I think they're very good, because I just love to study. I just love that university model. But he says, do these lifestyle changes and your arteries will unblock themselves. And he has studies to prove it. And one of the first people he worked with was Mimi Guarneri out at Scripps Medical Center. She was a cardiologist. Her job was to put in about 300 stents a year. That's what she did. And he said, give me a chunk of your worst patients and let's put them through this protocol. And every single one of them, after a while, no longer needed that stent, no longer needed that bypass. Now, we're not talking emergencies. We're not talking the person who walks into the emergency room and they're doubled over in chest pain, and so they need that stent right now today. We're talking somebody who is definitely blocking up, but they have some time to play with their lifestyle. If they do that, they get to change. And one of the lifestyle changes is meditation. And I always look at hypnotherapy as a very holistic thing. And I like to do hypnotherapy in a complementary way that it complements whatever else the person is doing. And I think multimodal is important. I want somebody to change their diet. I want them to change their exercise patterns. I want them to change their sleep patterns if any of these things are inappropriate. And I'm not the best person to advise someone on diet. I haven't studied that. I'm not certified as a nutritionist. So I want to see them go see somebody who's an expert in nutrition. If they want natural things, they should go see an herbalist or a naturopath, etc. So the fact that meditation is part of reversing heart disease, I find that so exciting, that we can actually take someone who would have had a really nasty outcome and had nothing to look forward to but nasty medical procedures, who can actually reverse that process. Next page. Changing internal strategy, such as shifting thought sequences that cause mood swings. When we look at people who are upsetting themselves, we get their internal strategy. Okay, when you come out of the building, you have OCD and you end up having to check the door 5 times to see if you locked it, and you find that very upsetting, and the people who see you do it find it very weird. How do you do that? Teach me how to have OCD. And they teach you how they do OCD, and then you break it so it doesn't work anymore. And then you change it so that it is effective the first time, and so that they're able to immediately and absolutely remember that they locked the door. So that is their internal strategy. You find out what it is that isn't working, and then you shift it so that not only doesn't the old strategy work anymore, but you have replaced it with a new stimulus response pattern that leads to success. Now, this is what the old-style behaviorists were trying to do. They wanted to change the behavior so the old stimulus would yield a new response. But they looked at the brain as a black body. They didn't want to know about thoughts and feelings and mental images. And so they missed the key that would have made that so much easier. But neurolinguistic programming jumps into that in great detail so that you will now understand that really well and be very good at it. Now, I already mentioned CBT. If you're already skilled at CBT, you're going to be much more skilled in it by the end of this class. And some of you have had training that was not CBT, it was some other way of doing things, psychodynamics, other approaches, and that's totally okay. By the end of this class, you will have a grounding in CBT. You'll understand what it is, how it works, and how hypnosis can help you utilize something. There's something in the NLP meta model called, the meta model is, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. The advanced NLP has a meta model, which is where you step back and you look at all the ways that people upset themselves. And that is the equivalent of CBT, except it dives deeper into the linguistic analysis of what's going on. So by the time you've learned the meta model, you're going to understand CBT at a deep level, and that's why I said that. Secondary gain. This is when I have a bad behavior, and but I'm getting something from the bad behavior. A lot of people on disability won't get rid of the disability as long as they're getting paid to be disabled. Because if they got better, then they would fail the doctor's test for the disability and they'd have to go out and earn a living. So, if somebody is proving to the state that they need to go on disability, they don't bother working with them because they're not going to get better. That's called secondary gain. I had somebody who had trigeminal neuralgia, which is a bad pain in the face. It's very uncomfortable. And that person came every week for weeks and weeks, and they always got rid of the pain in the office. They always got emotional relief in the office. And by the time they came back for their next session, the pain was just as bad. Well, it turned out that this was a woman, and her husband was waiting on her hand and foot. And she liked that at the subconscious level, so she wasn't about to make that pain go away. That's called secondary gain. And so somebody like that you're not going to fix because they got a reason for doing what they're doing. That's okay. And another thing I haven't mentioned here, but is palliative care. This is when someone's near the end of life and you're just helping them survive. You're helping them deal with the pain of their cancer and they're on their way out. This is somebody where you're not going to roll back the cancer, you're just going to help them deal with the pain of the cancer. And most people who deal with cancer want to go the standard medical route, chemo, radiation. And so they're not into rolling it back either. They just want you to help deal with the side effects of the chemo and the radiation. So you're not going to fix them, you're not going to solve the problem, you're not going to make the cancer go away, but you're going to make the problem less of a problem, and that's palliative care. Somebody at end of life, somebody in hospice, you're just easing the way out, making the door open a little bit more easily. I already mentioned that this is not about book learning. This is where to find the book learning. There's only one test. It's at the end of the 20 weeks, and we make it fun. So it's going to be a fun test. So don't worry about it. Don't sweat. It's not going to be an issue. Study guides I talked about already. And starting next week, you're going to get a study guide. It'll be like this presentation outline, except it'll be about the books that we're studying. All right, addictions. Caron graduates. I'm from Reading, and Reading has a very famous addiction center. It's called the Caron Foundation. We've had a number of people who work or worked at the Caron Foundation who have gone through our program. We also have someone here at Four Directions, Khadija, who graduated from the last class, and she's already using some of these techniques with the addicts that she works with. So there's a lot that can be done to help ease someone out of an addiction. I already talked about neurolinguistic programming, playing with the language. One of the things that's kind of fun, the mindful class has 8 weeks, and the last week, what they do in a typical mindfulness class is kind of boring to me because they teach you how to do mindfulness over time. Well, to do mindfulness over time, you just do it every day over time. That's kind of boring to me. I don't see spending hours teaching people how to do it. So instead, I take everybody through a scientific study process where I link 8 NLP and hypnosis techniques together, and we do them in a scientific way. We measure ourselves. We actually take vital signs, and then we go through the 8 techniques, and then we take vital signs. And we see what's changed. Has our mood changed? Has our thought process changed? Has our outlook on life changed? Is our blood pressure less, et cetera, et cetera? And so that's fun. And that's called seeing the world through softer eyes, because the world doesn't change, but by the time you're done, it seems like a nicer place to be. You're seeing the world through a softer eyes. And there's a professionally recorded CD around that. You'll get a copy of that CD. We did that once, and there was a woman in the class who had pretty severe diabetes. Her blood sugar was up in the 300s, and so she went through this process, and by the end of it, her blood sugar was 85, which is normal. So that was very interesting. Ipecac, the power of suggestion. If you know what Ipecac is, it's something that makes you throw up. They have it in emergency rooms to induce vomiting if you swallowed something that's not good for you. And they did a study years ago. They gave this stuff to pregnant women and told them it would take away their morning sickness. And it did. The mind is pretty darn powerful. Placebo and nocebo. You've heard of placebo. That's where you think you're taking the real deal, but you're not, but you get better anyway. So in a more broader sense, it's that you believe something good is going to happen, so it does. Nocebo is the opposite of that. You believe something nasty is going to happen, and so it does. There's a lot of things in life that function as nocebos, including watching the news at night where they know they got you, and so you hear, oh, it's cold and flu season. Well, that's a nocebo. That's a suggestion something is bad is going to happen. That, oh, you better look for those symptoms and you better run out and buy those drugs. White coat hypnosis. When the doctor sits down in his white coat or her white coat and says you have 6 months to live, that is a post-hypnotic suggestion. You know how many people live 6 months and die? Right around that time. So we're going to teach you how to help people who got white coat hypnosis. We take the labels off. People come in the office with a diagnosis, clinically depressed. In our office, we don't have any labels. I know they had a diagnosis. They have to have the diagnosis to get paid. But in NLP, we're not interested in saying, you're depressed, you're depressed, you're depressed, you're depressed. We take the label off. So I gave a little example of this. In this office, you are not depressed. You have some sad thought that has made you feel like life was not worth living. We can look at that and hopefully change that so that you feel better. So we reframed what was happening in different words that softened the person's point of view. And that's an extremely important skill. It's called reframing because people always beat themselves up and then wonder why they feel bad. Well, when you teach them how to reframe, they stop doing that. And I'm going to take you through a book in this class where you're going to do that to yourself, and it's always an eye-opener to do it to yourself. Neutralize the millstone, the stigma of a diagnosis or of going for counseling. You know, it's like, if I have a cold and go to a doctor and he gives me a drug and I get over it, that's cool. But if I go to a doctor and he says, oh, you're clinically depressed, now I'm mentally ill. In our culture, mentally ill is not cool. And that's insane because all of us are depressed from time to time. All of us are a little bit OCD from time to time. All of us have moods from time to time. So, you know, we could all probably qualify for a diagnosis at some moment in our life, but usually only the people who go for treatment are the most severe because they're so miserable that they're willing to undergo the stigma to get the help. Either that or they wanted insurance to pay for the treatment. But, you know, sometimes it affects things like, you know, insurance applications, job applications, you know, and it's just, Well, when we get to that point in the class, you're going to hear a rant from me on all of that. One of the classes I took in the doctoral program was about all of that, and it really made an impression on me. But in what we do when we do this kind of work is we take the millstone away, we reframe the stigma so that it doesn't feel bad, so the person doesn't feel bad about coming. Everybody wants to know, does hypnosis work if somebody's on a psych med, like Lexapro or one of the others? And the answer is yes. If it didn't, we wouldn't have very many clients, because most clients come in on some kind of psych med, at least if they come through conventional referral process. Yes, it works if people are on psych meds. If the person is having a bad reaction to their psych med, then that could interfere with what you're trying to do, but that doesn't seem to be happening most of the time. The people I see were able to work around any way that the med is affecting them. Now, what often happens is the work that you learn how to do here can make the person feel so much better that they don't need the psych med anymore, or they can reduce the dosage. And unless you're a medical doctor or a psychiatrist, you can't make that change for them, because that's a medical prescription and you can't prescribe unless you're licensed to prescribe. So what we do is, if the person says, well, I'm getting better and I feel like I don't need this antidepressant so much, and the words that come out of my mouth are, well, I can't tell you to adjust your med, only your doctor can do that. But if you're feeling improved, why don't you go to your doctor and tell them you think you're getting better, and tell them why, and ask them if it's okay if you reduce the dosage and work it out with them. All right, so the next thing says, who takes this course? Anybody who wants to feel better, anybody who wants to have some fun and learn how the mind works. So you can take this class without having to apply it professionally. We have people who haven't done anything before, and they're doing this to learn how to be a hypnotist or an NLP practitioner, so that they can make their living at it. We have massage therapists, Reiki practitioners, chiropractors, a lot of different people from medical professions. I've had a lot of nurses go through this, and all of them have found something wonderful in it. And there are also people who use it professionally in other ways, because NLP can be used in sales, it can be used in communications. If you're a lawyer, it'll help. If it's a teacher, it'll help. If you're a minister, it'll help. Anytime you have to communicate with other people, the skills you will learn in this class will help. And so what I want to encourage you, if what you saw in the 16-page write-up and what you're hearing about tonight excites you, and you know somebody who you think would benefit from this, invite them to jump on board for next week. And you're not committing to the whole class by coming to next week. You only commit to the classes you take. You only pay for the classes you take. So if somebody jumps on board and takes it for a month and says, it's too much work or not for me, then that's all they have to pay for. But if you think somebody would benefit, tell them to come. And we still have some seats open here in the office, so if they want to come and have the energy of a classroom session, they can do this too. Jumpstart the immune system. Colds, cancer, autoimmune. The immune system gets depressed very easily. Anytime you're upset and you go into this thing called fight or flight, your immune system gets depressed, and you immediately are now open to opportunistic infections. That's like a cold or a flu. Your immune system is what gets rid of cancer cells. So if you really depress your immune system, you can get cancer. We all have cancer cells our whole life. Even babies have cancer cells. But our immune system gets rid of them. It's when your immune system is depressed that something can take hold. Autoimmune, which is when your immune system is attacking your body, it's kind of way out of balance. That's a different kind of stress. But if you crank down the stress, then an autoimmune illness can go away. We have someone who graduated a couple classes ago, Jan Orchid. She had stage 3 lymphoma. She woke up one day with lumps all over her body and decided this was not a good thing. She went to her doctor. She ended up down at Johns Hopkins, and so she did do some chemo. And I don't think she did any radiation, but I know she did several rounds of chemo. But she used our approach in a complementary way. In particular, there's a mindfulness process called a body scan, and she did that every day, several times religiously. And what happened was she felt no pain, even though other people with the same diagnosis that she was talking to were feeling enormous pain. She had a much better experience than her fellow patients. She had much more energy. And after a couple of rounds of chemo, her doctor called her up and says, I don't know why, but it's gone from your body. There's no evidence of it at all. In the last scan, you don't need chemo anymore. Don't come back. And that was not the ordinary experience. But that's why I'm saying we are so influenced by this nocebo effect in this culture, it's everywhere, that we greatly suppress our ability to achieve positive events in our body. Conversational hypnosis. In the session, we'll teach you how to have a conversation with your client that will put them in trance, take them out, and do the work with them. And then you can say, they don't even have to know you did that. Now you can say at the end of the session, well, now let's do some formal hypnosis, and they'll think that's the hypnosis. So you can get really tricky, and you can slide past their resistance. This is all about sliding past their resistance. Deconstructing OCD, just to give you an example, we talked about internal strategies. I used to have a little bit of OCD around locks myself, and it was because of some emotional stresses I was under. I had to lock up a Radio Shack every night at 2 in the morning, and I was usually exhausted. And so I was in a vulnerable state of mind. And because the whole store depended on my locking it up, if I didn't do that, there would be enormous consequences. So it was really important that that door be locked. And so if I was under any kind of stress, I could go out to my car and say, God, did I lock the door? And I go back and check it. And then if I'm really wiped out and tired, I could be on my way out of the parking lot of that mall and say, I'm not sure I locked the door. If there's something on my, and I drive back, and I realized I was making an idiot out of myself. Luckily, nobody was watching. But that's the kind of thing that puts one of these OCD things in its place. It's a stress, and your subconscious mind is trying to deal with it by just having you do it over and over again until it gets a bit of ease. So what was I doing? I was locking the lock, but my mind was elsewhere. So I wasn't paying attention as I locked the lock. And then when I started walking out toward the car, my mind began to go down a path so that when I got in the car, I couldn't remember whether I locked the door or not because I was absent. I was absent without leave when I locked that door. In mindfulness training, we would say I was not mindful when I locked that door. And so what I had to do was retrain myself, stand in front of the lock, put the key in, be mindful, go into mindfulness, turn the key, and say, I'm turning the key, and now I'm pulling the key out, and now I'm testing the doorknob. The lock is locked. I know that it's locked. I'm going to go out to the car, and when I get to my car, I will sit and remember that I locked the lock, and I tested the doorknob, and this door is indeed locked. And I only had to do that a couple of times, and I was totally cured of that. So that's how these issues that get locked into the subconscious mind and are sometimes difficult to fix with pure conscious mind psychotherapy can be fixed relatively easily using hypnosis. Enneagram, your shadow self. Do you ever know someone who's a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? They're a wonderful person except when they're not. Well, that's most people. Because whenever we go into our shadow, when we get stressed, we get cranky. If you've ever watched Jeff Dunham and his wonderful ventriloquism show, his first dummy he brings out is named Walter. He's this cranky old guy. Well, he's in his shadow self the whole time. And people in their shadow self are not fun to be around. They're the ones that are snap out. They're the ones that are cranky, or maybe they curl up and die. They get dependent. They get needy. But they're just not fun to be around. They're reacting. And so what happens when people get stressed is they go into the shadow. And so they may come for therapy because people don't like their shadow, or maybe they don't like their shadow. They are known for being touchy. They're known for snapping out. They're known for getting easily depressed. They're going into the shadow self. And the shadow self is simply all the mental dust bunnies that you've put under the rug for so long. So we're going to talk about the shadow self and how all of that works together. So one of the things I'm hoping you're getting the sense that we're going to look at a lot of different models of psychotherapy and chunks of psychotherapy, like we're going to look at transactional analysis, the adult child, and critical parent, and how all of them are interesting, fit together, give you useful points of view, help enhance your understanding of the psychotherapy process. And we're also going to teach you that the map is not the territory. Each of these is a theology. It's a way of looking at life. Like if you're trained in transactional analysis, every person who walks in your door looks like a parent, an adult, and a child, because that's the lens that you're trained to look through. If you're a stress management consultant, every person that walks through your door, has levels of stress that can be filled out into a grid-like chart, and then that points you to the techniques to help them get rid of your stress. And so all of these are theologies, and the only problem with the theology is if you only know one theology, then you have a one-trick pony. You can only do one thing, and if all you know how to do is help people get their anger out with foam bats, then no matter what problem they come for, they're going to be hitting the other person with a foam bat. And if that's not their problem, they're going to be frustrated and leave and say bad things about you. So we want you to leave with so many strategies, so many tools, and such an ability to flip back and forth between all these different models that you end up being very flexible. I wanted to talk a little bit about what the unconscious mind can do. This is something that was not known for many years. John Sarno was the person who really brought it out into the forefront. He's now deceased, but he was a physician of rehabilitative medicine up in New York City. And he discovered that when a person gets stressed, in some cases it can go into the muscle, and the muscle tightens because of the stress, and that deprives the muscle of sufficient oxygen, and then the muscle feels pain because there's not enough oxygen. It's like if you're exercising, and you exercise too much for too long, you can get a muscle cramp and it has pain, and that's what we're talking about. But you can do that just from emotional stress. Now, this can be cured by hypnosis. This can be cured with the tapping technique. And what they do is they get rid of the emotional stress. You can target the pain. You can say that pain in my whatever, my pain in my left toe, you can tap away, and by the time you've tapped for a minute, the pain in the left toe is gone. But this TM, near the end of his life, he realized it wasn't only musculoskeletal tension. He realized it was at the root of irritable bowel syndrome. He realized this was contributing to rheumatoid arthritis. He realized that the whole spectrum of what we call psychosomatic illness, that is illness with a psychosomatic component, was influenced by stress. And toward the real end of things, he began to think everything is psychosomatic. And that's really the place where I've wound up. I believe everything is psychosomatic. It has a psychological component. But isn't it interesting to know that a lot of pain that people have, for which they go to a doctor and take all kinds of drugs for, is actually caused by stress, causing their muscles to tighten, causing them to be devoid of oxygen, causing them to have pain. That gives you a whole different picture on pain. And there are so many people that have come in and said, I have this backache, it's been bothering me for weeks, and in 10 minutes you can have it gone. Had somebody come in the other day, we ended up chasing the pain, and the third pain was something in their shoulder blade, and they just said, this has been there forever, and we had it gone in 5 minutes. So once you learn these tools to go into the subconscious level, you can actually work magic. Now, if you've ever watched street hypnosis on YouTube or gone to a hypnosis show, you've seen instant inductions where they snap their finger or do something sudden and the person goes right into trance. It's very real and a lot of fun to watch. There's hundreds of ways to do it. Basically, you can link any behavior to any response. And did you know that when you shake hands with someone, both of you go into trance for that moment? It's a cultural unit. The handshake is a cultural unit from start to finish, from when you stick your hand out to when you pull your hand back. That is a culturally prescribed unit, and both people go into trance during that process. If you do something weird while that person is in that cultural trance, if you start to shake hands with someone and then you pull their hand back and you lift it up with the other hand and you begin to curl their fingers over and then stroke the palm of their hand, their subconscious mind doesn't know what to do. And if you just say sleep now, they'll go right into trance. Well, there's a good story about Milton Erickson. He got really good at this handshake induction thing. And there was a psychiatrist who had a reputation for being a really bad client. He was a miserable old cuss. He was like Walter. He was in his shadow all the time. But he knew that nobody could fix him. And he contacted Erickson. He said, "You're my last resort, but I know you're not going to fix me either." And Erickson said, "Oh, well, what the heck? Let's give it a shot." So the guy came in. Milton failed deliberately for an hour. And the guy said, "See, I told you it wasn't going to work." And Erickson said, "Yeah, you really got me. Let me shake your hand." And he shook the guy's hand, put him in trance, let him back in the room and did the work and got rid of his problem. So when you learn how to do this, you can do really cool stuff. I'll tell you one more quick Milton Erickson story, and then I got to move on here. But that is, it's called a non sequitur. It's when you totally change the subject and you blow somebody's mind. Erickson was actually held up in the parking lot of the hospital where he was working, and the guy came up to him and said, with a gun and said, "Give me your wallet." And Erickson looked at his hand and he said, "But it's not 3 o'clock," and walked away. And when the security guard came out and arrested the guy was still standing there with his hand up, and he had totally gone into a catalepsy and was frozen in physiology because Erickson put him in deep trance. He knew how to do that. So displacing resistance, that's what this is all about. The handshake induction for that client who thought he could get the better of everybody, Erickson displaced his resistance by faking it for an hour and letting the guy think he had won, so the guy relaxed. He thought he'd won. Displaced his resistance, let me shake your hand, got him in. So we're going to tell you how to, when someone is a really resistant client, we're going to show you how to displace their resistance. Patterns versus scripts. We're going to give you a book of NLP patterns. These are not scripts. A lot of them are only a small portion of a page. They may be only this part of a page. It may be 10 lines. But it could take you a half an hour to go through that with a client. But by the end of that, they'll be a changed person. Who is a con artist? A con artist is somebody who's really good at hypnosis and can swindle you out of your life savings by putting you in trance and convincing you that they really are going to fix your roof. And one last story before we take our break. I worked with a nurse who had a really bad allergy, a fire hose in the head, and she came to a workshop where we were doing this EFT stuff for allergies, and everybody got fixed but her. She came up to me afterwards and said, "Didn't work. I'm still miserable." And she said, "I am so frustrated." I said, "Good, let's tap on that. I am so frustrated. I am so frustrated. I am so frustrated. I am so frustrated." In 5 minutes, her allergy was gone, her head had dried up, her headache had gone away. Not only did she remain allergy-free for a year, but she came on TV with me and gave a testimonial. So when this stuff works, it really works, and it's wonderful. So why don't we take a break for 10 minutes, and when we come back, I'm going to go through the textbooks really quick that we're going to start with next week, and we're going to end with a closing meditation. So I'm going to stop the Zoom recording and shut off the MP3. And this is MP3 number 3. This is basic NLP class 0. This is October the 11th, 2018, and we're in the Lehigh Valley. And now I want to quickly go over the books that we're going to use for this basic class. And Sandy, who is my Vanna White, is handing me these. This says NFNLP Basic Practitioner. And we printed, it's a PDF that's quite large, and for ourselves we printed this out and got it bound and put a spiral binding on it. We're just going to send you the PDF, and what you do with it is your business. Some people print it out and bind it like we did. Some people put it in a spiral bound, put it in a 3-wing binder. Some people just keep it in PDF form and look it up on their computer. And all of that is fine. All of that will work just fine. But that's what has all these patterns in it. And for example, this particular one has As you can see, it's about a half a page, and there's like a half a dozen steps. So this is way, way different than a hypnosis script, which would specify every word. And yet, this is the Godiva chocolate pattern. This is how to get people to do something that they don't want to do by linking it to something that they really, really love. And so if you love Godiva chocolate, you can hook that into anything that you have trouble getting started in. That's the Godiva chocolate pattern. So it's a whole bunch of patterns of things like this that just help people get. All right, Vanna, what's next? All right, this is Trance Work, an introduction to the practice of clinical hypnosis. It's by Michael Yapko, and this book has been around for many years. It's in its 4th edition, so you want to make sure you get the 4th edition of this, because the first 3 editions are good, but they don't have near as much as this does, as you would imagine. This is a very basic introduction to the practice of hypnosis and hypnotherapy. He talks about direct and advanced and Ericksonian, and he does a very, very, very nice job of it. And we're going to be going through a chapter in this every week in considerable detail. Actually, I can put it here. All right, this one is A Guide to Rational Living, and this is by Albert Ellis and, is it Robert Harper? Yeah, Robert A. Harper. And so this book is also in its 3rd edition. There was, first of all, A Guide to Rational Living, and then there was an update to that, and then that was the 2nd edition, and now this is the 3rd edition. So you want to make sure you get the 3rd edition of this, because this is specifically written in NLP, meaning there's a particular linguistic pattern that drives people crazy, and that has been eliminated from this book, and they teach you how to eliminate that from your thinking. And so this is actually Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, REBT. It's another way of doing CBT. And we're going to go through this, and I'm going to suggest as we go through this that you actually apply it to yourself. And then by applying it to yourself, you will realize many things that you wouldn't get if you just studied the concepts by themselves.
And you want to remind them that if they don't already have them ordered, they should order these too, because you're going to start next week.
Yeah, and Sandy reminded me, you want to order these too, because we're going to start on them next week. And speaking of next week, as I mentioned, if there's anybody else you know of who you think would benefit from this class, invite them to come to next week, the official first class. We generally allow people to join this course anytime in the first month. We give them up to 4 weeks to decide, hey, this is cool, I think my friend would do this, or I know a therapist who would like this. And we know that all they have to do is watch the old recordings in order to catch up. But this is a fun read, and you'll learn a lot from it. Could you give me the... no, the other one, the CBT one.
CBT? Oh, this. That's new to me.
Now, I mentioned the roots. You're going to get cognitive behavioral therapy throughout this because it's very similar to some of the things we do in hypnosis. You could think of hypnosis as CBT done in the altered state. And that actually allows you to get in there and do many things much more effectively. This is one of the best basic books on the subject. This is by Judith Beck, who's the daughter of Aaron Beck. Aaron Beck was the guy that invented what he called CT back then, and it's now called CBT now. And so this is the 2nd edition of her book. They run an institute, so down at University of Pennsylvania is where he did the original research. People from around the world have gone there to learn how to do this. And so she runs this school. And so this is her textbook. It's in the 2nd edition. It's very good. You don't have to buy this. It's not required that you buy this. But if you haven't had a foundation in CBT and you want to go beyond the discussion that we do in this class, this is a book that I would recommend because this has all the official forms, the procedures, how do you do your intake, how do you work with somebody, how do you decide, what do you do in the first session, what do you do in the second session. It's all there, and it's all rolled out, and it's all done at the official psychotherapy level. So this is, you can't do it more officially than this. Okay, give me the other CBT book.
Is that the one in the...
Yeah, take it out of the... Now, there are literally hundreds of textbooks on CBT, and I haven't even read them all, so I certainly am not an expert on everything that's out there. But there are lots of books out there that collect things or have a specialty into it, and I always thought this guy did a really super job on this. This is Ryan McMullen, and this is his second edition of the Handbook of Cognitive Therapy Techniques. So it's called the New Handbook of Cognitive Therapy Techniques, and there's like 63 different cognitive therapy techniques in this book. So if you're already familiar with the roots of cognitive therapy, but you'd like to see what are the different things I can do with this, he really goes to town in this book. And actually, a number of the techniques that he uses use visualization in a way that we could actually say that he's using a hypnosis technique because he's doing CBT in the altered state like we do. And I wanted to show you one more book. All right, and we actually use this as the official textbook one year, and it's called Hypnotherapeutic Techniques 2E for second edition. And this is very scientifically based. The two authors are Barabas. He's a psychologist in practice, but he also directs the hypnosis laboratory at Washington State. And John Watkins, who was one of the originators of regression therapy. He's a real famous guy. And they wrote this book together. And so this was a very nice book. We actually used it one year for the textbook, and then they raised the price from $50 to $100. And I thought, well, we can get Yapko's book for around 40-some bucks. It's between 40 and 50 last time I checked. So, we decided to use that as a standard text and just say if you want to get into the research aspect of it a little further than Yapko does, this is a great secondary source. So are there any more, or is that it?
That's all you gave me.
That's all I gave you. All right, so what I want to do now is I just want to give you a taste of hypnosis at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the standard induction that I do with all my clients, so you get a taste of that. And that's a real quick, what we call progressive relaxation. There's two ways to do that, passive and active. In active muscle relaxation, you tense your muscle and you relax it. You tense your muscle and you relax it. And as you tense it and relax, you get more and more relaxation. If somebody has a real problem with muscle tension, that's one way to attack it. In passive muscle relaxation, you simply notice. Well, there's two ways to do it. You can tell your muscles to relax, allow your feet to relax, allow your legs to relax. And then you can do it the Ericksonian way, which is indirectly. And so instead of telling your muscles to relax, you notice what your muscles are doing. As in the Ericksonian work, we want to make sure that you cannot fail. So if I tell you that your muscles are relaxed, that may not be true, or you may not feel that your muscles are relaxing. But if I tell you to notice how your feet feel, you can't mess that up. So that's how we would do it in the indirect. So I'm going to do that for a few minutes, and then I'm going to have you imagine a time of mastery, because that'll pull you into that feeling of success. And then I'm going to paint a picture for you of what it will be like to go through the different parts of this class. And I'm going to do it in the hypnotic way. I'm going to use a trancy voice, and I'm going to modulate my voice in certain ways, and I'm going to pull out the multisensory components of this whole thing. And this is how we use hypnosis to get somebody to do something. So I'm going to alert you up front. This is a naked attempt to get you to sign up for this class. But it is going to show you how an image painted in your mind paints a compelling picture. And not only that, but this is very relaxing for most people. So you'll probably, by the end of it, feel very peaceful, very happy, very relaxed, and like you want to come back next week and be in the class. So I'm going to I'm going to start another MP3 so that the meditation itself will be isolated in case somebody wants to come back.
Do you want the ceiling lights on?
You can turn the ceiling lights off. All right, this is MP3 number 4. This is basic NLP Class 0. This is October the 11th, 2018. We're in the Lehigh Valley, and I'm going to start some music. And I have to warn you in advance, thousands and thousands of clients have gone into hypnosis listening to this music, so I'm just warning you that you might find yourself going into trance. And I also mentioned to the people on Zoom that Zoom attenuates music, so you will hear the music very faintly watching it tonight, but when you get the MP3s, and so you hear the actual recording of MP3 number 4, the music will be louder and more balanced. It'll be equivalent to what the people are hearing that are actually sitting in the room here tonight. So prepare for meditation and put aside any materials. Prepare to close your eyes and relax. And so allowing your eyes to close and your body to begin to relax. Letting go of anything that was on your mind. Anything keeping you from doing the things you wanted to do, being the things you wanted to be, having the things you wanted to have. Letting go of anything that was keeping you in bondage. And over the next few minutes, as you listen to the sound of my voice, allowing yourself to relax so deep that you can make the change you came here to make. And the change you came here to make was simply to spend some time relaxing and learning about this interesting subject called hypnosis, and allowing yourself to evaluate whether you would be interested in spending a period of time learning how to do this at the professional level. And since we're talking about the professional level, let's relax, just as you would in a professional hypnosis session. So noticing how your feet feel as they rest in a relaxed position. Simply notice your feet, how they are. Notice how your legs feel as your body begins to relax. Feet are relaxed, legs are relaxed. Notice your arms and hands as your body relaxes even more. Feet are relaxed, legs are relaxed, arms and hands are relaxed. And notice that your body is breathing all by itself. Can you begin to notice somewhere in your body a feeling of relaxation, a reluctance to move, a pleasant, heavy, tired feeling? Can you begin to notice this pleasant, heavy, tired feeling as it begins to move throughout your body in a wonderful, delightful way? Feet are relaxed, legs are relaxed, arms and hands are relaxed, and your body is breathing all by itself. And now Now I'd like you to go back in time to a time when you were happy, peaceful, and relaxed because you had mastered something wonderful. Maybe it was a new physical skill like riding a bicycle. Maybe it was a mental skill like learning the alphabet. Maybe you just learned how to tie your shoes. Or maybe there was a time later in life when you did something and felt really good about yourself, like achieving an advanced degree, opening your own business, becoming a member of a wonderful profession. But just remember that feeling of having done something wonderful. Not only done it wonderfully, but done it well. And you remember that time on that day when you did this wonderful thing, when you felt that sense of mastery? Can you remember where you were? What was the weather like on that particular day? What time of day was it? Were you with somebody or were you alone? Remember this wonderful thing that you mastered? Can you remember what you saw? What you heard? And what you felt? How did it feel to master that thing? Did you feel good about yourself? A sense of excitement in your body. How good did it feel to be deeply relaxed? Can you remember the temperature of the air against your skin? That's right. Feels good to have a sense of mastery. And now I want you to think about the things that you heard tonight as we went through this program. Is it exciting to you to think of mastering these skills? Pulling somebody up out of depression so rapidly that they get so much more benefit out of your session. Teaching someone how to deconstruct an OCD pattern so they don't have to frustrate themselves anymore. Teaching someone with an affect disorder how to smooth out their emotions. Teaching someone how to take an old response and change it to a new response so that the old trigger becomes a new response so that they're able to follow their doctor's orders. That instead of smoking, they make the healthy choice. That they're able to learn a new skill at their sport, whether it's a hobby or a profession. How about getting an athlete out of a slump in 1 hour. How about helping a person who's returning to school after many years and is feeling insecure to be so excited, so enthusiastic, and to program them with new study skills that can literally make them one of the best in their class? How about being able to roll back somebody's chronic illness so they don't have to take medication for the rest of their life, and so that they can age gracefully and have more years in their life and more life in their years, and don't have to follow the standard cultural pattern of ending up in a nursing home with a tube up their nose? Would you like to be able to help somebody who's going through a medical treatment have a better experience? A better experience of surgery, achieving pain management without drugs? Would you like to help somebody reduce or eliminate an addiction? Think of all the people that need to lose weight that you could help. All those smokers. Think about helping them to make the healthy choice. And people who are caught up in the awfulness of codependence, who are in relationships where all they do is push and pull their partner, who's pushing and pulling at them, and they're miserable and fighting all the time. How to unravel these patterns and teach them how to fall in love again. How about somebody who chews their fingernails? Not to do that anymore. Somebody who wants to lose weight, to gain the satisfaction of looking on the scale and realizing that they've done it, that it's happening, and it was effortless. They're no longer fighting the inner war. How about somebody with post-traumatic stress? Has this awful flashback, just draining the energy right out of that so it doesn't work anymore. So they can think of that memory, but they don't have to, and it doesn't bother them, and more importantly, they're no longer getting intrusive thoughts. Someone with low self-esteem. Maybe they're having trouble with the opposite sex, or they feel like they're not doing their job right. I can tell you right now, whatever's bothering them, it's an overreaction. In CBT, it's called a cognitive distortion. Their thought isn't reality-based, but it sure feels true. Teaching them how not to do that anymore. How about taking away a phobia? And oftentimes able to do that in one session. How about someone who has emotional wounds from a history of abuse in their childhood? Maybe a parent was an alcoholic or a rageaholic. Maybe they experienced physical or sexual abuse. Can leave a child so crippled in their emotional responses. Think of being able to untangle that psychological mess. Discharge those old emotional charges safely and easily. And we'll learn a model for doing that focuses on the client's safety and well-being, so the changes are gentle and they always feel good at the end of your session. Think of all the stressed out people out there. If you could take away their stress, you have just given them their life back. How about all the anxious people? You can teach their minds not to be anxious anymore. How about all the people that have a crippling fear or panic attacks? How to suck the juice right out of that so it doesn't work anymore. And instead they're experiencing life through their adult, feeling peaceful, happy, and relaxed. How about someone who had a terrible experience like a rape that keeps them from participating in an intimate relationship because they're so afraid? Their subconscious mind thinks the emergency isn't over. Think of learning how to go in and neutralize that and not take a long time to do that. And doing it without re-traumatizing, without having to drag the person through the awfulness of that experience. How about the person who's lost something important? Sometimes you can help them remember where it is. Think of all the people who can't sleep. Hypnosis is wonderful at helping people learn how to have healthy sleep. How about someone who wants to do an exercise program but they have trouble getting to the gym? In one session, programming them so that going to the gym is easy, effortless, and so much fun. I could go on and on. There's virtually no problem that hypnosis cannot help with. Because hypnosis teaches us how to get back in balance, to discharge our old emotional wounds, to get back into harmony with ourselves. Like the blocked creative, the person who is in writer's block, get them writing again. Or the artist who has stage fright, get them to the point where they look forward to being on stage. How about the professional speaker? Teaching them how to get their audience hooked so that people think of them as an entrancing person. And they'll say about you, I love to hear this person speak. He is so good, or she is so wonderful. She paints a picture in my head. Public speaking, so many people have that fear. In one session, helping someone lick that problem. If it sounds like magic, it often seems that way. But it's just the application of known principles. And just like in your professional training up until now, you've learned so many known principles and you see them work day after day after day. So they may seem magic to the person you're doing them with. But to you, it's just another day of doing it right, getting it right. Just think of adding all these hypnosis and mindfulness tools to your skill set. And now think of doing it all to yourself. Learning to relieve your own stress. Balance out your own patterns. Get rid of your own pathological strategies. Learn mindfulness so you don't get caught in depressive patterns or moods. Learn how to guide other people in both individuals and groups into the most wonderful experiences. Working with groups is an art in itself, and taking people into an altered state as a group can be so rewarding. And if you communicate for a living, if you're a teacher, a lawyer, salesperson, chaplain, other communicator, there are so many ways to use these tools. So just think of adding all of these tools to your personal skill set so that you are so much better at communicating, so much more confident, so much at peace, smoothing out the rough edges of your own personality by just applying these techniques to yourself on a daily basis. And you don't have to tell anybody you're doing it. But after a while they say, wow, you seem more relaxed. what's happening, and you could say, well, I learned this class and these techniques. And you can explain it to them as the application of known principles. What would it be like to you to learn these principles and apply them in your personal and professional life? Well, I hope we communicated to you some excitement, some enthusiasm, opened some doors, took you to some windows and say, look out upon that vista. Would you like to be a master of that situation? In short, we hope to see you again next week. And if there's anybody you know that you think would benefit from this program, bring them along. And if you'd like to come to the physical class, we still have some slots open. We'd love to have you here. There's always more energy in the physical class. And if you have any questions about the class, be sure to write Sandy and let her know. And if you have any clinical questions, be sure to write me, and we'll be glad to answer your questions. And so just noticing how good you feel, how relaxed you are, how peaceful you feel. This is the wonderfulness of a deeper trance state. This is therapeutic trance. Feels really good. It makes you get in touch with your potentials. And it gives you the excitement of looking forward into a bright future. So just bringing back that excitement. Looking forward to learning these principles and applying them both in your own personal life and in your professional life. And so coming all the way back now. All the way back to this room, back to now. Hearing not just the sound of my voice, but all the sounds around you, clearly and distinctly. All your senses coming alive. Noticing what it's like to be alive in a physical body, feeling even better than it was a moment ago. And in a moment, coming all the way back, coming all the way back now. When you're ready, take a deep breath. Open your eyes. And notice how good you feel, how relaxed you are. And so that's it for tonight. And we're looking forward to seeing you next week. And if you bring somebody who will benefit, that will be exciting too. And you'll get an email from us that will say, to participate in this week's class, number one, just respond to this email, which will come from Sandy, and write a couple sentences about what it was like for you when you went through this meditation. And then take a couple minutes and observe some people in your life and notice what trances they are in. And that's all. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.